Part 1. Chapter 1. The Catalyst. "Is that really Africa, Dad?" Jessica asked. My thoughts floated across the water stretching out before us as my family and I stood at the cliff's edge in the early summer of 2008. "Dad? Dad! Are you even listening to me?" My inquisitive 13-year-old daughter Jessica persisted. "What, sweetie?" I said, snapping back into the moment. "Is that Africa?" She was pointing at a smudge of brown on the horizon separating the water from the sky. "Yes, that's Morocco, and that's the Strait of Gibraltar in front of it. We're standing on the southernmost tip of Europe." "Are we going there?" "No, sweetie. We're going to drive around Spain for a while before we go to London. We were en route to the UK, where we would live for 6 months while I worked at Pepperdine's London program during the summer and fall terms. My 8-year-old Jennifer took off her rainbow-rimmed sunglasses and sighed. "When can we get some ice cream?" "I want some too," my burr-headed middle child Joshua added. "No, Dad." Jessica stood on her tiptoes until she and her furrowed brow were centered in my field of view. "I mean, are we ever going to Africa?" "Nope. I have no plans to go to Africa. Ever." "Why not?" All she got in reply was a shrug. I turned her shoulders around to face the horizon and placed her head under my chin. What would we ever do in Africa? "Hey, Jim, let me get a photo," my wife Jolene said as she lined us up against the rail, and we squeezed together to fit in the frame of the picture. This was the only memory of Africa I expected our family ever to share. Had Jolene's camera lens been able to focus over my shoulder on a small village 3,358 miles south of Gibraltar, it would have captured a deceptively innocuous scene. A dusty peasant farmer hiring an itinerant herdsman to tend his 9 cows. A red sun peeked expectantly over the rolling hills as the herdsman shuffled onto the bustling road. His dew-drenched shirt clung to his stiff back, and his alcohol-soaked head hammered from his 3-day binge. He was no stranger to sleeping on the ground, but his aching joints reminded him he wasn't getting any younger. He pulled a hat over his weathered face and blinked at the red dirt swimming beneath his bare feet. The sputtering cough of a boda drew his glance to the driver, and then to the middle-aged man seated behind him on the motorcycle. The passenger wore a faded Manchester United t-shirt and a scowl. That isn't him, the herdsman thought, but better to be safe. He quickened his pace and ambled unsteadily into Hoyma's outdoor market, seeking anonymity among the merchants propping up crude wooden stalls and setting out their merchandise. Tomatoes, pineapples, second-hand clothing, and other necessities for life in rural East Africa. Are they still hunting me? The herdsman wondered, carefully avoiding any eye contact. Why didn't I take a bus south to Kampala? They wouldn't have looked for me 200 kilometers away. Why did I steal from them in the first place? They gave me a job and treated me well. He cursed himself for squandering the money on alcohol. Now it was too late. I can't even afford a matatu to Masindi. As he ducked under a yellow Uganda Cranes soccer jersey dangling over the narrow path leading into the market, his stomach growled. He could afford little more than some bread and something to drink while he hid yet another day. More than hunger, though, he felt fear. It wasn't fear of the police. They only cared about more serious crimes. It was the boda drivers. He shuddered as he remembered the beatings he'd witnessed, and sometimes participated in during his younger days, when thieves were caught red-handed. "2 chapatis," he said to the woman laboring over an iron skillet. 1,000 shillings, came the reply in broken English as she slipped the circular pieces of flat bread into a plastic bag. As he pocketed his change, an unfamiliar voice startled him from behind. "Iman Riho?" The herdsman turned slowly and found himself staring into the eyes of a boda driver twice his size and half his age, the one who had zoomed past minutes earlier. "My passenger told me you are the thief called Iman Riho," the hulking man growled. He weighed his options. He could run, but with his shaky legs, his odds of escaping were razor thin. He could offer his remaining money as a bribe, but the boda driver would earn that amount on a few fares over the next hour. Or he could play dumb. "Eh? Who are you looking for?" "Iman Riho, the herdsman who stole money from his employer 3 days ago." "That is not me." He shook his head vigorously. "Then you should not be worried." The boda driver seized his arm and forcefully escorted him back through the market. "I am not a thief! I am not a thief!" His trembling protests drew a crowd, their experience telling them a boda driver dragging a suspected thief meant violence was imminent. By the time captive and captor reached the road, about 20 onlookers had convened, many of whom were also boda drivers. His captor yanked off his hat and turned his chin toward the man in the Manchester United shirt. The man spat. "He is the one. Make him pay." The first blow landed behind Iman Riho's right ear, knocking him to his knees. A kick to his left ribcage emptied his lungs. As he retched and gasped for air, he felt himself being hoisted onto a motorcycle behind a boda driver. Another man scrambled on behind him, the jeering crowd trailing them as the motorcycle eased out of the market. Iman Riho instantly recognized the route. They were heading toward his employer's home. The crowd's insults gradually intensified into death threats, which sharpened Iman Riho's focus. As the motorcycle slowed near a school, Iman Riho lunged sideways and escaped while a chorus of female voices pierced the morning air in alarm. Iman Riho's adrenaline surged as he darted around trees, vaulted over ditches, and zigzagged between houses like a gazelle being chased by lions. He'd never run so fast. But it wasn't fast enough. Iman Riho was glancing back at his pursuers when an agile young man leapt from his doorway and sent the escapee sprawling. Before Iman Riho could regain his feet, the crowd was upon him, dragging him and showering him with punches and kicks until he'd lost several teeth and could hear only ringing in his ears. The pain was excruciating. Was this the end? Through swollen eyes, he saw his employer's neighbors emerging from their shanties. As they joined in the pummeling, Iman Riho recognized his boss's deep voice. "Stop! That is enough!" A moment passed, then another. No more blows. "Someone bring my herdsman some water." Iman Riho rolled onto his side and tried to sit up. His mouth fumbled for words of remorse, but only mumbles emerged. He scanned the crowd in vain for his employer's kind-hearted wife. Suddenly, a towering figure approached from behind him, blocking out the sun. Iman Riho turned and squinted, trying to identify the object the man held above his head. He heard his employer scream, "No!" as the heavy stone tile crashed down on his skull. Everything went dark.